It's 2026. I first got into business in 2016, 10 years ago now, and an awful lot has changed, but also an awful lot hasn't. If I was talking to someone and they're about to go into their first ever business and they're asking what it is that they should be doing, I wouldn't be recommending AI and building a personal brand and trying to go viral. I know this is all the rage right now, and listen, all of that is super good advice. You should definitely listen to it. It's great advice. But when you're very first starting out, if you don't understand the fundamentals of how business actually makes money, if you don't understand what cash is and how that's different from profitability, you're not going to be around in business for very long. So I was actually asked this question just last week on a walk through the Noosa National Park with a bunch of people. There was someone that is just starting out, and she asked me the question, like, what are the key couple of things that I should know if I'm getting started in business? And the messages that I gave her, there were three key fundamentals. First of all, she needs to understand how the business makes profit. If a business isn't making profit, it's not going to be around for very long. So you need to understand the basic mechanics of how that works so that you can make sure you're able to stick around in business. Secondly, and related to the first one, you need to understand that the way that a business makes profit, it's not a linear journey. It's going to change over time. And you need to understand that what things look like when you first get started are very different when you want to go to the next level and the next level and the next level. And you need to understand these basics of how profit works so that you can always spot the next right move for you in your business. And the third thing I really wanted her to know is that profit and cash flow are two very different concepts. Profit is telling us whether or not a business is winning. Cash flow is telling us whether or not a business is going to stick around. Because regardless of whether you're winning or not in the profitability side of things, if you don't have the cash there when you need it to pay for things, it's lights out. Business will be stuffed. So we need to understand that profit and cash are two very different things. Profit at its real basic sense is just the income, the money that people are paying you for the goods and services you're delivering. Take away the expenses, the cost of running your business, the cost of being able to produce those goods and services. It's income less expenses. What's left over, that's your profit. And what you want to hope is that income is higher than the expenses. You've made a surplus there. That's what profit is. There's incredibly high failure rates when it comes to businesses. It sounds very accountancy and boring, but I promise you it's a fundamental that many business owners miss. Okay, so the first topic, understanding profitability. You don't want to think in just terms of income and expenses. You want to think about what are the key one or two numbers that's actually driving those results. So if we're looking at income, we want to look at price and volume. How much are you charging people for the work you're doing? How many transactions or how many clients or how many builds or whatever it is that you're getting into, how many deals, volume is it that you're actually doing? And why looking at numbers at this level matters is because when you are first starting out and you're just looking at, I want to get certain results, what it is that I need to focus on, this enables you to see, all right, what am I going to charge, but how many people am I going to actually service? How many people am I going to sell to? And this kind of leads into the cascade of all the other things that you need to get right in business, like who are these people? Where am I finding them? How am I converting them? The marketing, the leads, the conversion side of it. All of that stuff matters, but you need to know what you're even aiming for. You don't just want to be just willy-nilly selling things and hoping things work out. You want to have a clear idea of, I need to make this many sales at this price if I'm going to stick around in business. And then on the other side of the equation, looking at the expenses, you don't just want to look at like expenses as a total cost for your business. You want to look at them in the 2 or 3 or maybe 4 main buckets of costs that actually explain what's going on in your business. Those headline categories, I'd be thinking like, what is the cost of sales? What are the money I'm spending to buy and sell the product? So as I'm getting busier, I'm spending more money in that category. Team, if you've got people helping you out in business, you need to understand what the team cost is. Marketing as a cost, the shortcut to being able to accelerate growth in business is to make sure that you're investing back into the business, the marketing side of things. And then finally, just overheads or the general running cost of a business. And you don't need to look at this full-blown list of telephone bills and power bills and blah, 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 blah. Just group it all together and say overheads. What am I spending? But it's knowing these key fundamental costs, like the 2, 3, maybe 4 different categories of where you're spending the money, which is going to help you to understand how your business is going to actually make money. Because you need to work out how many deals at what price for income, where am I spending the money for expenses? And you need to make sure the income is high in the expenses so that you're making a profit. Because if you're not making a profit, you're not going to be in business for very long. So the second topic here is that I want people to understand is that the way a business makes profit right now is going to be very different at different levels as you're growing and scaling your business. And why I think this is important is because when people first start out, they can a lot of people work out this basic plan of how to get started in business. But what you need to know is that that plan or that system of how the business is going to win when you get started is very different to what's going to take you to the next level and the next level. And what you need to understand is that profit and margins and the way the costs work, it's not a lovely linear journey in business. It's not a straight line of a business growing. Instead, it's full of many ups and downs. The world of business is full of flux all the time. Costs are changing, team costs are changing, competitors are happening. Everything is always in a flux. And you need to realize or appreciate that the way a business makes money now is going to be different at different stages. And using this to your advantage means you're able to understand how the business is making money right now. But if you're looking ahead and wanting to grow and scale your business, you need to be looking at how the business will make money at the next level. Because it's that not just living where you are now, but looking at what the business will look like at the next level that enables you to see what needs to change. What can I invest in? What's going to grow? Which parts of the business can I now unlock and take me to the next step? So it's just having an appreciation of the fact that the way your business makes profit right now is going to be different at each different stage of the growth journey. So the key takeaway there for point number 2 is that profit is not linear. Growth is not linear. Costs in a business are not linear. They're always full of ups and downs, but you need to understand how they work for your specific model and what they're going to look like as you're growing and scaling. Okay, and topic number 3 was understanding that profit and cash flow are very, very different items. So profit is telling us, is the business actually winning? Is it making money? Are we selling our goods and services for a price higher than what it's costing us to run them? And therefore, are we making that surplus? Are we making the profit? That's great. Looking at that piece of paper that says you're actually making a profit, we're winning, is really nice and comforting, but it doesn't equal cash in the bank. Cash is very different than profit, largely because of timing differences between the way you run the business from a profit perspective. There's different timing cycles at play between when money's entering in or out of your bank account. So to start with, timing is very different. Recording a sale and recording profit and sending someone an invoice, that shows up as profit straight away. It's not real until the cash hits your bank account. And so you need to be able to understand, first of all, that there's a difference between profit and cash, but also know that cash is something you need to manage as a business owner. And in particular, you need to have an understanding of the timing of money coming in and out of your bank account, particularly looking forward, for 2 reasons. One, you need to make sure that you're never going to run out of cash, because this is the number 1 area where businesses fail. They think they're profitable on paper, but they run out of cash. And it's not being able to pay your team on time, not being able to pay your landlord, not being able to pay your bills, and things get cut off. This is what kills businesses. So you need to have an appreciation that cash is very different from profitability. Not only that, you need to have an eye on your cash, in particular, like looking forward, a cash flow forecast. You need to have an estimate of what your cash position looks like moving forward so that you can see in advance, are there any of these danger periods? Is there risky times where it looks like I'm going to run out of money and therefore I can do something about it now? That's at a fundamental level. When you start going pro with this stuff and going to the next level, you realize that the cash flow, being able to look at it and understand, right, when is cash building up? That represents opportunity. Cash is fuel for a business. That's an opportunity that you can invest in the business to be able to take it to the next level sooner. That's how you unlock and grow and scale a business faster, by actually utilizing the cash as a resource within your business. But I don't want to overwhelm somebody who's first starting out. First starting out, we need to make sure we're understanding our cash position so that we're safe. But second level, going pro with cash, looks like, how do I use that cash as fuel to grow and scale my business? Do I think somebody needs an accounting degree to start in business? Absolutely not. The maths we're talking about here in terms of am I making money is plus and minus. We're talking, how's the business going to make money? What kind of expense are going to be incurred in doing that? Am I making a profit? Yes or no? You don't need an accounting degree for that. I've literally already told you the simple formula right now while we're talking about it. But you do need to have an appreciation for it. You do need to value that basic formula and how a business works, because if you're someone who goes into business and you ignores the simple fundamentals of how a business is going to make money, i.e. understanding the formula that leads to profit, If you ignore that, honestly, it's at your own peril. Kind of three things are going to happen if you do ignore it. One, it's going to be a very long, slow, hard journey for you as you're trying to work out how to do things when the answers are just there in the formula about what you should be focusing on and where you should lean into. Two, you're going to be constantly flirting with crisis and risks and feeling the bumps and feeling the pressure and living in a state of anxiety of not knowing and having fear. So this is kind of like missed opportunity on upside, downside opportunity of what you're living with. And honestly, the third thing is just the chance of you being one of the businesses that fails is very, very high. Like 50% of businesses fail within 5 years, 75% within 10 years. There's less businesses that stick around for the long term, a lot less businesses than the numbers that failed. And why businesses fail? It's because they overlook this simple fundamental of what keeps a business going, and that is profitability. A business needs to make money if it wants to stick around. So the sooner you embrace that and put it at the heart of what it is that you're doing, or at least have a clear plan of how your business is going to make profit, the better chance of success you're giving yourself of being able to stick around in business long term. A common misconception is, but doesn't the accountant handle that, or doesn't the bookkeeper handle that? The simplest analogy for this is you need to know what these people's roles are. A bookkeeper's role is writing down what's happened. An accountant's role is compliance, making sure that you're following the rules, the laws, keeping you out of jail when it comes to the tax man. So if you think about this in terms of the game of business, the bookkeeper is just the scorekeeper. They're literally sitting on the sidelines, just writing down what's happened after it's happened. Nothing to do with forward projections or where we're going or what plays you should be making. They're just literally writing the score. Your accountant is the referee. They're the person who's just basically telling you what you can do, what you can't do, what rules you need to abide to. If you're falling foul of things and you've got a penalty, that's what an accountant does. People I know often tend to lean into, I've got a good accountant, I can rely on them. You need to appreciate that your accountant's job is compliance, and your accountant isn't in your business day in, day out making the decisions. It's you who is playing the game. It's you who needs to understand the rules of how your business works so that you can see what plays to go into next. What are the opportunities? Where do I need to go? What are the risks that are popping up that I need to cut off before they happen? Business is literally like a giant game of decisions that you make every single day. And you need to understand like the impact of those decisions in the context of the simple formula about how your business is going to make money. You cannot rely on somebody external to do that for you. It's great that you can check in with your accountant once a month if you have a good one, but realistically, for the majority of people, it's a once a year conversation where they tell you, did you make money, yes or no? How much tax you need to pay? You can't rely on that person for day-to-day decision making. It's something that you as the business owner need to grasp and take hold of. So I think if I was going to wrap this up to give somebody who's just starting out like a final piece of advice, it's probably to know that building a business is like going on a really, really long-term journey, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And what that means is there is forever going to be changing weather, cycles, systems, people coming and going. Business is not a short-term pursuit, and there is so much for you to learn, and you're going to be constantly challenged. And every time you get to another level, there's a new wave of things coming in for you to learn and understand and adjust to. And I guess where this comes back to what I'm talking about today is it's really important that at each step of the way, you understand the fundamentals of business in terms of, is this business making money? Yes or no? What does it need to do to make profitability? While also understanding cash flow at any point in time. Because if you're understanding those two core fundamentals, it doesn't matter like what stage in the growth journey and what kind of shitstorm you're traveling through or what lovely smooth sailing path you're on, you're going to be able to navigate your way through those ups and downs, through those challenges. And for the vast majority of businesses out there, I know there are some businesses that start and just shoot off amazingly. Those are the very, very rare instances. For the majority of business owners, it starts and it's a long, slow, hard journey to get there. But if someone's making good decisions, one good decision on top of another good decision, ultimately it's going to compound to something amazing. And again, just coming back to understanding these fundamentals of profit and what we need to do to make the business succeed, and cash flow, how we can keep it around long enough, means that you can keep focusing on the right things so that eventually you're going to get there. You're going to be able to build a strong business, something that you're proud of, something that's actually going to fulfill the dreams of why you wanted to get into business. Yeah, I guess so. My parting comments would just be, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate the finance side of things. Just keep it really high level, really simple. How do we make money? Just remember also that 80% is good enough with numbers. It doesn't need to be spot on, perfect. You don't need to dial it down to the last cent. As long as it's 80, 90% accurate, that's enough for you to make decisions. It's enough for you to decide what I need to do next to make money, or what I need to focus on right now. And number 3 is just focus on what matters. Don't get distracted. Like in business, there is a whole world of things that you need to learn, that you need to know, people who are winning that you want to catch up on, and you want to understand how they're doing it. Just come back to your business, how your business works, and make sure that you're focusing on the key things that actually matter to you and your business. So all the points I've talked about today, I've talked about on lots of other videos on this YouTube channel. Spend some time in here watching those and learning and skilling yourself up about how finance can be simple, easy, and more importantly, focus on what actually matters for you and your business.